President Trump tonight exercised one of the presidency's greatest powers. He asked all of the networks for time at 9 p.m. Eastern in the middle of prime time to address the country. A report card, if you will, on the past 11 months and what he promised would come ahead in the next year.
After 11 months, our border is secure, inflation is stopped, wages are up, prices are down, our nation is strong, America is respected, and our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe.
The president with a decidedly optimistic view and laid out point by point what he inherited and where he thought America was going. Specifically, the White House thinks they have wins on the stock market, lowered mortgage rates, which the president highlighted, massive investment that was coming, he said, because of his tariffs. Conservative radio host Eric Erickson is with us in just a minute. We begin tonight with NewsNation's Kelly Meyer, live from the White House. Kelly, if you're hearing from White House folks in the way I am, they are quite happy.
Yeah, and even talking with folks just moments after he finished that address, they were saying that this is really a focus on the issues here at home and really focusing in on those bread and butter issues. And as you mentioned, Leland, looking back at what they feel he was able to do in the last year, really go back to the beginning, what he was able to do from January on, the border, as he talked about, and other things. And then looking ahead, as you mentioned, to what he's going to do next year and in the years to come. And it was really that message we saw in Pennsylvania just 1 week ago when we were talking in northeastern Pennsylvania and taking it to prime time, though he did condense that speech very much to 18 minutes there. He stuck to the script, but it really did focus in on the economy, especially the pocketbook, what's going to be hitting people at home, especially ahead of the holidays. And it's notable, too, that he delivered this address from the diplomatic room with the Christmas decorations around him. It wasn't sitting at the desk. He was standing, reading off of the teleprompter there and laying out word for word what he accomplished in the last year. So that was really interesting to see. We also know that he talked about a lot about his predecessor, mentioning Biden by name about 7 times, really still kind of having that axe to grind with his predecessor, but then also saying what he's been able to do, talking about the border, to his favorite word, tariff. And then he also talked about what he's going to do next, from those Christmas bonuses for military service members, tackling grocery costs, as well as the cost of housing. And that seemed to be taking a page out of Mom Donnie's book in that visit he had with him in the Oval Office a short time ago. Here's what he had to say about what's to come when it comes to housing costs. Take a listen.
I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country.
The one thing that he didn't mention, Leland, that I thought was notable was Venezuela. There was zero mention of Venezuela. And again, that comes back to what the White House official told me, was that this was more of a focus on the homeland, bread and butter issues, and not so much what's happening overseas, though he could make the argument that that does affect the drugs coming into the country. It comes as we just saw another boat strike today, killing 4 people. No U.S. service members or forces were hurt in that. But those strikes do continue, and it was interesting that there was no mention of that, especially with kind of the hype that we were hearing and the rumors that were going around Washington that it may come up in this address. Leland.
All right, Kelly, stay with us. Keep checking with your sources with how they are looking at this.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.